Welcome everybody to the SOS Small Business Success Podcast. I'm your host, Bonnie Bonadeo. We're all about building brands that survive while developing people to thrive. And you know what? I got an interesting conversation to go on here today. It's called the PIrate Imposter. And I did a post on Monday talking about imposter syndrome because, I was at an event a couple of weeks ago and it seemed like every speaker was referencing how they felt this imposter syndrome. And one of my great friends, Karen, was next to me and she goes, why does everybody keep saying that? Now, Karen and I are from, the boomer generation. And we just noticed all these young people having this reference to imposter syndrome. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to dive into that a little bit because being in the coaching industry, I see this a lot. I feel this a lot. And I myself can be in this same position of feeling like this imposter syndrome is in there. So our session today for the podcast within our framework of, the five anchors that we have that we work on each and every week: sales, operation, mindset, marketing, education, of course, is in mindset, because that's where the imposter syndrome lives, is in our mind, not necessarily outside of us. So we have to be able to kind of dive into this a little bit deeper and see where's it coming from and what does it really mean. So first of all, who says you're not worthy? Because that's kind of the synopsis of the imposter syndrome. Who says you're not worthy, right? You have to think about that. Now, imposter syndrome, defined, is also known as imposter phenomenon, imposterism, a psychological occurrence in which an individual doubts their skills or talents or accomplishments and has that persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. So if that's how it's defined, then I want you to think about a time in your life when you may have felt a bit like a fraud, or you may have felt that you didn't compare or could compete with those around you. And I'll bet that you probably have an opportunity to say something about this almost every day today. So why are so many of these, and I'm just saying younger generations, because it's definitely falls more into this younger generation space than it does, for when I was younger or growing up or whatever. And part of it is just because of how it's defined, right? So why are so many younger generations imposing this on themselves and others? And what's really the difference between fake and fact? And where does that reside in us, that we feel like fakes, and we then try to overcompensate it with facts at times? But let's look and see where maybe some of the blame might be, we might be able to kind of point the finger at here a little bit. So phones, okay, not being as present, being online more than in real life, okay, so that digital space of where we're devoting our time versus the in real life space has an interesting factor on our perceptions of what is real and what is fake. Our phones kind of take us on this journey from everything from, metaverse to reality to other places and other opportunities. Some things that we may never see or reach in our existence or in our lifetime, we're exposed to. And so there's this point where it makes us feel small and insignificant at times, okay? Social media, of course, is a big player to imposter syndrome. We're all putting on our best face in front of the camera and in front of the platforms, but people really don't know what's going on behind closed doors. They don't know what's going on in your real life. They don't know how you may be struggling or how you may be even more than you're claiming to be out there. So I think social media is a big factor in that. Lack of leadership, you know, as somebody that really spent a lot of time invested in education around good quality leadership, I don't see a lot of it today. I don't see a lot of it. I see everybody being so individualized and then looking for that one thing that might make you like the other, and then only making that connection in that regard, but not looking at maybe who you are fully and saying, well, I can have this label, and I can have this label, and I can have this label, but I can also have this label. And then we kind of have a tendency to maybe not wear too many labels or over label ourselves in there. And part of that is just an absolute lack of leadership of where we're going in society, or maybe what is important to us. And I know that these things have changed over the last couple of years. I mean, they've certainly changed for me. So there's no doubt that what we think is important today is different than maybe what was important a few years ago. And we are still, you know, going through the process of trying to find ourselves. But I think that we're also looking still on the outside of ourselves instead of looking on the inside of ourselves. And then, of course, I think one of the final things that might be to blame is a lack of mentorship. So, you know, leadership could be one thing, and that could be, are you having to self-lead yourself? Are you in this independent space that you're having to self-lead? Do you have leadership in your life? Do you have, structure and an environment in that where you see what good leadership is, and how that's exposed within a workforce, within a community, within a country, within the world? Okay. All these things are up in the air right now and very fragmented, and easily tilted and altered every day if you're keeping up on any of the news at this point. But the mentors are the people that we can watch and learn from, not necessarily emulate, because I don't want you to think that in order for you to have the same success, you have to do exactly like they do. This level of individualism is gone way off the rails, but at the same time, people are just trying to compete with what other people are doing, or slam other people for what they're doing in order to make themselves look better. And none of that's healthy, and none of that's working very well. So these could be potential blames for this imposter syndrome. But I think ultimately one of the things that's to blame is you. Like, you really have to look at how you're viewing yourself and the conversations that you're having with yourself. You know, are you putting on the act? Are you looking in the mirror and thinking that you're not enough? Are you presenting yourself as one way online, or maybe even in real life in situations, but behind closed doors, you aren't as healthy as you're exposing yourself as? Your ego is a big part of this process here. And I don't want to say that ego is bad, but there is a point where ego distorts our ability to have reality be present in our lives. A lot of people think that offering themselves up these affirmation processes and, putting on that face and then going out into the world and trying to do that. And sometimes that's drive, sometimes that's passion, sometimes that's fake it till you make it approach. But if you're looking at yourself in the mirror, and for those of you that are watching this on video, you can see kind of the depictions of the pictures I've used here. But if you're listening to me on just the podcast, I want you to think about, when you look in the mirror, what are you seeing? Are you seeing somebody that's worthy, or are you telling yourself you're not worthy enough? And that's the only place that we're going to be able to start to shift this imposter syndrome process. Now, I saw this posted the other day from my dear friend, Gary Call, who I think is one of the smartest people in the industry. Thank you, Gary Call, for all your leadership and mentorship that you've offered this industry for so many years. But it's a Seth Godin quote, and he's really one of my favorite people to follow. And every now and then he'll have his daily blog quote that will pop up, and it will hit home. It will resonate with me. It will go deep into my soul. And this is one of them that went deep into my soul. Here it is. How brave are you? It's possible that you no longer need to get better at your craft, that your craft is just fine. It's possible that you need to be braver instead. Okay. So we talked about it from a craft standpoint. So I want you to think about it. So let's look at it from a business standpoint, first of all. It's possible that you no longer need to get better at your craft. You don't need to keep maybe investing in to things to make you better at doing one or two things. Maybe you're good enough at those one or two things that you're doing, and you just need to be brave and really put yourself out there, or shift your approach to how you're going to take this expertise or this craft that you've honed in on and really make it work for you. Really create that return on investment for yourself. Okay. So there's the braver side. But let's look at it. I'm going to read it again, but I'm going to take out the craft part of it. I'm going to take out the business part of this. It's possible that you no longer need to get better, that you are just fine. It's possible that you just need to be braver instead. So even when we take the craft out of there, it has that kind of impact that you are enough and that you are doing all the right things, and that you just need to be a little braver in order to kind of step into the space that's going to alter, change, or make a difference in your life. So, these, I don't know, for those of you that remember when the Secret came out, the movie The Secret, and it was kind of a mind-altering video of how we're perceived. And it was really a big time in, at that time, that ego was a very, very hot topic. So Eckhart Tolle, The Secret, all of these things, they had this foundational piece on it that was all around our ego, our perceptions, our belief systems, and how we could alter them in order to achieve or have the life that we want. And I remember being fascinated by this process, because I myself was able to, manifest at a particular time in my life and achieve things that were amazing and unbelievable. And of course, sometimes vision boards and storyboards and things like that can help you to really visualize and manifest these things, and have them come true. And I think that all of that is still very relevant. All of that is still very real. So if you do that stuff, I think that's great. But I think we're distracted. I think we're distracted by social media. I think we're distracted by political landscapes. I think we're distracted by the world feeling a little bit less safe than it used to. And I think we're trying to find our place in it. I think we're trying to find our voice in it. But the truth is, it's possible that you don't need to get better, that you are just fine. And it's possible that you just need to be braver instead. So I want to continue to look at that bravery piece here. But first, I want to do a little exercise with you guys. So if you're watching, if you can see the screen, you're on video with me. I know that you have identified what it is the picture of, but for those of you that are listening, I'm going to describe it. So you walk into a room and there's nothing in the room but this thing. And this thing is red in color. And it's kind of square with smaller stick-shaped legs, in a sense, you could say. And it has kind of a platform, and then it has like a back to it. So now I want you to think about that for a second, and I want you to think, oh, it's a chair, right? It's a red chair. But I want you to think that you've never, ever, ever seen a red chair in your life. You've never seen a chair in your life. So you walk into this room and you see this thing and you think, what is that? Is it an alien? Is it an object? Is it a weapon? Is it something to hurt me? Or is it something to provide pleasure for me? And because you've never seen a chair before, it's not identified as a chair. So you have a tendency to fear it more than accept it in regards to this. Okay. So now I want you to visualize that same thing, but you walk into the room and there's one of these red things, but 4 of them are white. They all look the same, except for the colors a little differently. And again, you don't know if some of them are good things and one of them's bad, or if 4 of them are bad and one of them's good, because none of this has ever been identified before. If you don't know what a chair is, you would have a tendency to have fear towards it, or your ego would say, we need to go into protection mode. You are not safe. All right. But because we've identified what a chair is, the minute you walk into this room, and it could be a waiting room of some sort, you would know to go right to that chair and sit down in the chair and not have any fear attached to it. Okay. So our ego and the word identity kind of plays a role in imposter syndrome. Does identity define us, or it define it? Okay. Because how we relate to ourselves is based on defining an identity or a series of stories that come from experiences and feelings, whether true or not. Okay. The meaning we gave to what happened is more true than what actually happened. So if you might have been bullied in school and you have low self-esteem, or you're trying to overcome low self-esteem by making yourself appear, to be stronger and more relevant, how you felt and what you experienced is building this reality for you. So the meaning you gave to what happened is more true to us than what actually happened. Because you could just say, I was bullied in school. And the other goes true kind of from an opposite way, as if you grew up with more privilege, and not necessarily in that space of being bullied or whatever, that you may not be able to relate very well with somebody that has been bullied. But if you think about all of these different scenarios from that, we look at identity, if we can identify something, so now we've identified imposter syndrome. That was never something we used in my early days or growing up. We never talked about being frauds or imposter. We were just trying to be the best people we could. And if we didn't know something, we went and learned it. And if we didn't know it, it was okay. Or we could still feel low self-esteem, or that we weren't good enough. But we didn't let it identify us, in a sense, as I see today, and how much more exposed we are to these imposter fraud feelings. But what if we are not our thoughts? What if we're not our thoughts? And if we're not our thoughts, then what are we? And if our thoughts are based on this ego presentation of us, like there's our being side of us, okay, maybe this more spiritual side of us, and then there's the ego side of us. What if our ego is just an illusion? And if you've ever read the book Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, there's a page there that, well, the whole book is centered around this perception of ego, and how he talks about it being the greatest error and the deepest truth. And depending on how it's used, in I, me, my, mine, myself, these things that we identify ourselves as, could be completely misleading. And in normal everyday usage, I embodies this error, this misperception of who you are. It's this illusionary identity. And it's a deep, deep book. But if you are struggling with low self-esteem or a belief system, I think it's a good book for you to be able to read, because I think it kind of like allows you to feel what you're feeling from the inside, and then see how it's impacting you from the outside. Okay. So your reality becomes a reflection of this original illusion that we call ego. And now sometimes ego is good because it can protect us. It's when our fight and flight syndrome steps in, and it has the tendency to protect us. So I'm not denying that ego shouldn't be present, but when we don't have a balanced perception of ourselves as a spiritual being to an ego person, then we get these distorted relationships in life. We get these distorted moments where we're feeling insignificant, insecure, imposter syndrome, frauds. And I don't think anybody has not felt this. I think that because we've identified it as imposter syndrome, I think more people are relating to it, of course, than ever before. Because certainly I've been in this position. I would say I've been in this position all of 2022. You know, life's going good. 2020 happens, life is, there's a bit more of a struggle to it, but you kind of also appreciate the fact that there is this sense of slowing down and reevaluating the direction that you're going in. And then you build it back up again in 2021. So we all wanted to build up what we had in 2019 and 2021. And it wasn't easy. And in a lot of cases, and in mine specifically, it wasn't what I wanted. I'm like, why am I taking all this time to build this back up again? So 2022 has been more of a challenging year for me because I'm really trying to not reinvent myself, because that would be imposter syndrome right there, but to really refine and define where I'm most happy, where I'm most a contribution to the greater good of society, and where it connects me to my world. And that's a big, tall order. And I am still in that space. So I want to read the Seth Godin quote one more time before I close out. How brave are you? It's possible that you no longer need to get better at your craft, that your craft is just fine. It's possible that you need to be braver instead. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that to the bank, that quote, and really help have that blog, that quote that he just wrote, have that be my guide and leading me into it, that my word for 2022, which usually doesn't come to me this early, but brave. Boy, I tell you what, my word is brave. Okay. So I am going to be opening up my books for new clients in 2023 because again, I want to reiterate that some of you may be feeling this like I did. It's possible that 2022 has been harder of getting back to where you were and then realizing maybe that's not where you need to be, and then struggling to find where you want to go. So I'm going to take 2023 and I'm going to help you, because I'm doing this myself, find your purpose, live the life you want, free of ego and free of this imposter syndrome. So if you're interested in setting something up with me, by all means, you guys know how to reach me on IG. You can DM me, go onto my bio. There's an opportunity to set up an appointment. We could look at what 2023 has to offer you as well. In the meantime, since I'm not going to be taking new clients until the new year, I do have some free downloads that you guys can take advantage of. So the 2023 Salon Strategy Planner is out. The 10 Secrets to Salon Hiring Success download, the SOS Guide to Recession-Proof Your Salon, which again, I really think financial struggles are not over. And with the way that the political landscape is going, we might be in even a tougher time in 2023. And of course, if you just want to take a little quick test on your balance wheel to see where are the areas of opportunities that you might not be putting enough attention to in your life in order to have that free and balanced life that you're aiming for. All of those are free downloads, and you can head to my IG at Bonnie Bonadeo and click on the bio, and you'll see all of those links available to you to be able to download some of these free resources. And until then, you guys, I'm going to be bringing some guests on for the rest of the year, going into the beginning of the year, that I'm going to be doing the Mayan Soul Cruise with in May. So if that's of interest to you, I'd love to share more about that with you. But I'm going to be bringing on some guests to talk about what we're going to be doing on this cruise. And maybe you'll be joining us, because I want pleasure, and work and fun and friends and people that I care about. I want to be spending more time doing those things. And this cruise that's happening in May, that's going out of Miami, going to Mexico, going to the Bahamas, and then back to Miami. I mean, what could be better, right? You got education, you got fun, you got beach, you got sun, everything's all right there packaged into one virgin cruise that we're doing here. So I'm excited to be able to promote that. I'm excited to be at it. And I would be excited for you to be joining me for that too. All right, guys, until next time, thanks for joining me. This is Bonnie Bonadeo for SOS Salon Coaching and Business Podcast.